Chapter 21. Evolved. Standing still in the middle of a creek just before the sunrise, Sierra concentrated on the smell of the morning air while listening to the water as it flowed over her feet. Though there were a great many miles between where she now stood in Missouri and her family ranch in Texas, she still felt the peace of home. Taking in a deep breath and letting it out, she could tell by the smell of dew in the air that morning had arrived. Get moving. Quickly, Sierra's hand moved to her pistol while she bent her knees, squatting to make for a smaller target. The peacefulness of the morning was now nothing but a memory that would not be thought of again. Looking to the left and then to the right, she saw nothing, heard nothing, and smelled nothing that wasn't already present. The more she thought about what the voice in her head told her, she knew it could only be one person. "Carlos," she mumbled as the pistol slid back into its holster, and her hand lay upon the Texas Ranger badge on her hip. "Well, if he is taking time out from being dead to tell me to get moving, then I should probably do just that," she said to a squirrel that quickly ran away, having been unaware she was even there until she spoke. While making her way to the creek bank, Sierra thought about what the day had in store for them. It was time to accomplish what they had set out to do: free others from the FEMA camp control. 50 yards away from the creek, Katie lay on her sleeping bag, listening to the creatures scurrying around, while everything began to brighten as the sun rose over the horizon. "God, I miss my bed," she moaned as she turned over to her side and pulled the bag closed over her face. Turning over to her left side, to her back, and then to her right side again, unable to find a comfortable position as had been the case for most of the night, she then rolled once again onto her back and sighed. Frustrated, Katie flung one arm up and out of the bag, signaling to the world that she was through with trying to sleep on the cold, hard ground. As her hand made contact with the earth, she felt what had caused some of her discomfort throughout the night: acorns. It had been dark when they made camp, and with the threat of Chinese soldiers and the bottom of society rounding up women and putting them in cages, like those they had freed earlier in the day, the discussion was easy not to make a fire. Therefore, it was difficult to clear the spot where she had unrolled her sleeping bag for the night. Slowly, her fingers wrapped around an acorn, and as a protest to the uncomfortable night she had, she flung it through the air. Just then, her mood changed as a smile crept across her face, and with little effort, she located another, quickly tossing it through the air. "Nothing," she thought, as she tossed another and listened for the sound of it making contact with its intended destination. "Damn it," Katie said softly as she launched another, this time hearing Carter moan as it bounced off his forehead. Pleased with the results, her hand ran across the ground in search of just the right acorn, the largest she could locate. Now that she knew just the right angle to throw, the only conclusion was that the bigger the acorn, the louder the response. After rejecting several, she located the perfect one, and with a repeat of the last throw, sent it on its way. "Shit!" Carter shouted, grabbing at his forehead. Rising up from where he had been sleeping and rubbing his forehead, he asked, "Did you just throw a rock at me?" It wasn't until that moment that Katie thought about how much harder and heavier the last one she had thrown was compared to the others. Deciding to close her eyes and lay still, Katie hoped that the darkness that remained would be enough to hide the grin on her face. Wide awake, with a small bump growing on his forehead, Carter's attention turned from where he could hear Katie snickering to Sierra, returning from wherever she went early in the mornings. He often wondered what she did so early, but never wanted to get up that early to find out. This morning she appeared different, not only because of giving up the red and white shirt for the black, but also because there was no cap. Carter watched as Sierra walked over to her saddle with her old ball cap in hand, opening up the saddlebag to slide stuff inside. He had not known her very long, but he had heard the story of her killing a man by running a chair leg through his heart to get that hat back. Continuing to watch while rubbing the bump on his head, Carter wondered what had prompted the change as Sierra began removing the holsters for her .357 Magnums from the Western-style belt and fastening them to her saddle. More than anything at the moment, he wanted to ask what she was doing, but his fear of her prevented the words from being spoken aloud. However, it did not stop him from turning his attention to Katie, as he felt the bump still growing where he knew she had hit him with a rock. "If you want me to think you're still asleep, your snickering needs to sound more like snoring." Giving up the ruse, Katie busted out laughing after slightly opening one eye and seeing the size of the bump on Carter's forehead. "Forgive me. I am sorry. I thought it was an acorn." Upset over the pain he now felt, Carter could not help from letting go of the need to retaliate as she began moaning in agony. "What's the matter? Bust a stitch?" he asked sarcastically, referring to the stitch work Sierra had done to the bullet hole in her side. Now he was the one laughing. "We're moving out in half an hour, so be ready. I want to be at the camp before noon," Sierra informed them as she pulled back the slide on a pistol they had taken from the men they had killed the day before. After finding one that felt comfortable in her hands, she began cutting the Texas Ranger badge free and moved it to a black nylon belt used for the new pistol holster. Though she loved her revolvers a great deal, Sierra thought of how the fight had changed, and the 6 shots of the revolvers just didn't go very far when fighting the ever-increasing numbers of the enemy. Sierra understood that she had to grow, since the revolution they were in the middle of had evolved into what seemed to be the next world war.